Hey, Shalom, Akim.
Shalom, Akim.
Hey, YAHAWASHI, YAHAWASHI. All right, first say all praises and glory is due to Yahweh. BaHaSHam, YAHAWASHI, BaHaSHam, QADASH. THAWADAH to the apostles, our elders, and much love to all you brethren out there. Elder THAWADAH, me to Zion, back at you with another one through the Spirit. All right, and basically we call this one exploring all the lies of the Jewish almanac. All right, basically it's called exploring the Jewish almanac. And we're exploring all the lies, you know, all the BS. And we're going to go through the precepts, you know, and a little history. And without any further ado, THAWADAH, you got the floor.
Okay, so we're gonna we'll start off with a scripture, Revelation. Start off with Revelation 2 and 9, and then we'll go from there.
Revelation 2 and 9. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan.
Right. The Lord said, I know. Read it again.
I know thy works and tribulation and poverty.
Right. The Lord said, I know thy works and tribulation and poverty. Go ahead.
But thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan.
Right, but are the synagogue of Satan. Because what these so-called Jews did basically is they stole our identity and said that they were us. So basically what's going on is identity theft. And the entire world believes that these people are supposed to be the people of the Lord, and that you Negroes, West Indians, Puerto Ricans, so on and so forth, are just, you know, they just lump you in with the Hamites. They just lump you in with the Hamites. As far as the native tribes, they try to lump them in with the Chinese and say that they're part of the Chinese, which is total bullshit. And that could be further. That's the furthest thing from the truth possible. They basically did the flip-flop on us. They stole our identity, and then they said that they were us. That's basically what happened, identity theft. You got that term today, identity theft. Well, identity theft has been committed against us, but people out there seem to have a problem with it. But a lot of people in the know for a fact that these people running around with the small hats, the big-nosed people with the small hats, that they're actually not the children of Israel. A lot of people know that the small hats got nothing to do with this. So especially a lot of people in Hollywood, a lot of people in the know, they know that these people are not the people of the Lord, but they still push that facade. Now, one of the things that we're going to go into is, number one, we're going to go into and read some things out of the Jewish Almanac. This is a 1980 Jewish Almanac. So we're going to go into this. But before we even touch down on this, I got something here from, and as a matter of fact, I think I'm gonna pin the link inside of the I'm gonna put the link inside of the chat. So if any of you want to go to it, that's the link. And I'm gonna read some bits of information from this link that I just put in the chat right now. So any of you in there, if you want to click on yourself and look on your computer. Now this is from it's called.
Oh, sorry, I mean to cut you. It's called. Tell the brother from the brothers watching on GMS at the job.
Right. It's
tell
called.
No, tell them your site so they can go on there and go on.
Right. On my site is called DisappointTheWicked, and you look for this show. The name of the show is Exploring the Lies, and when the show is over with, in the description box, I'll put the link in the description box also. But I pinned it in the chat room right now. And basically what you do is, anybody watching live on Zion's channel on GMS at the job, you just put in Israel, the Jews admit that they are not the descendants of the ancient Israelites. And the guy's name is called Willie Martin Studies. The Jews admit that they are not the descendants of the ancient Israelites. Willie Martin Studies. Now here it says here, I'm reading this on the screen inside of my my computer. It says the Jews admit that they are not the descendants of the ancient Israelites in their writings. Under the heading, it says here, a brief history of the term for Jew in the 1980 Jewish Almanac, which that's what I was showing you in the beginning right here. This is the 1980 Jewish Almanac. Now, yeah, you can put that up for them to see. And so what I'm going to read, it says a brief history of the terms for Jew in the 1980 Jewish Almanac is the following. Strictly speaking, it is incorrect to call an ancient Israelite a Jew or to call a contemporary Jew an Israelite or a Hebrew. 1980 Jewish Almanac, page 3. Now it goes on to show Encyclopedia Americana, 1985. It says, Khazar, an ancient Turkic-speaking people who ruled a large and powerful state in the steppes north of the Caucasus Mountains from the 7th century to their demise in the mid-11th century AD. In the 8th century, its political and religious head, as well as the greater part of the Khazar nobility, abandoned paganism and converted to Judaism. The Khazars are believed to be the ancestors of most Russian and Eastern European Jews. That's in Encyclopedia Americana, 1985. Encyclopedia Britannica, 15th edition. Khazars, confederation of Turkic and Iranian tribes that established a major commercial empire in the second half of the 6th century, covering the southeastern section of modern European Russia. In the middle of the 8th century, the ruling classes adopted Judaism as their religion. That's Encyclopedia Britannica, 15th edition. Academic American Encyclopedia, 1985. Ashkenazim. The Ashkenazim are one of the two major divisions of the Jews, the other being the Sephardim. Encyclopedia Americana, 1985. The Ashkenazim are the Jews whose ancestors lived in German lands. It was among Ashkenazi Jews that the idea of political Zionism emerged, leading ultimately to the establishment of the State of Israel. In the late 1960s, Ashkenazi Jews numbered some 11 million, about 84% of the world Jewish population. Says here, the Jewish Encyclopedia, Khazars, a non-Semitic Asiatic Mongolian tribal nation who emerged into Eastern Europe about the 1st century, who were converted as an entire nation to Judaism in the 7th century by the expanding Russian nation, which absorbed the entire Khazar population, and who account for the presence in Eastern Europe of the great numbers of Yiddish-speaking Jews in Russia, Poland, Lithuania, Galicia, Bessarabia, and Romania. Then it says, let me see, the Encyclopedia Judaica, 1972. The Khazars, a national group of general Turkic type, independent and sovereign in Eastern Europe between the 7th and 10th centuries Christian era. Part of this time, the leading Khazars professed Judaism. In spite of the negligible information of an archaeological nature, the presence of Jewish groups and the impact of Jewish ideas in Eastern Europe are considerable during the Middle Ages. Groups have been mentioned as migrating to Central Europe from the East, often have been referred to as Khazars, thus making it impossible to overlook the possibility that they originated from within the former Khazar Empire. So that's just some information right there showing you that it's well known that these people are not the people of the Lord. And the thing about it is, what a lot of these different people mix up, what they don't understand is that just because these people are basically had that empire in basically in the Caucasus, they automatically attribute them to being Japhites. They're not Japhites. They're Edomites that migrated into Japheth's land and basically staked the claim in there. Originally, they're from Mount Seir. Mount Seir is the habitation of the children of Esau. So they migrated out eastward into those lands, into Japheth's land, and took over. Just like they went into Rome, because Rome is Japheth's land also. Going back to Romulus and Remus, which were Japhetic. Rome is also Japhetic land also, and they took that over. Greece is Japhetic land, and these Edomites went in there and took those lands too.
Right. Germany,
that's right.
Poland, Russia, even Russia.
Right.
All of them.
All of those lands are Japhetic lands.
I got a scripture for you.
Go ahead.
This is Mark 4:22. It says, "For there is nothing hid which shall not be manifested."
Right. There's nothing hid that shall not be manifested. So they went in and they took Japheth's land, and they basically claimed it, and they lived in Japheth's land. A lot of the nations that were originally in certain land masses are not in those land masses, are not living in those land masses anymore. Now, as far as the East Indians, Elam, or the Persians, they're actually still in their ancient land right now. But they do live abroad in the earth, but for the most part, they're over there in that ancient land. That was their ancient land. Ham isn't there in their ancient land also? Yes, they are, and no, they're not, because originally, for instance, like Iraq, the original inhabitants of Iraq is the Cushites, not the Ishmaelites that's in there now.
Same thing goes for Egypt.
Right. The same thing goes for Egypt, like you said.
Egypt, Morocco,
those different lands. You got a lot of Arabs up in them lands. You got a lot of Arabs, and you got a lot of Turks that's in those lands right now. But those lands, that's originally all Hamitic land.
And a lot of them were transplanted there, starting with going back to Alexander the Greek.
Yep.
You know, matter of fact, in Egypt is a place called Alexandria, which goes back to when Alexander the Greek, right, when he conquered the whole known world.
Yep.
And they set up his 4 generals to take up to put them over the different regions that he took over, like the land of Ham. That was Ptolemy.
Ptolemy took that. That's
Ptolemy,
right.
The Ptolemy dynasty. I mean, there's a lot of history, man.
Yep.
All right.
So that's just to show you that in these particular lands, the original inhabitants are not right now currently in their lands like they were in the ancient times. But some of these people are actually in their ancient lands still to this day, right? So now going back to the the Jewish encyclopedia, right? Going back to here, what I wanted to read in here is I'm gonna have to get me some more light. I got my phone for it, but I'm gonna try to put it on the screen. This particular chapter is called Whatever Happened to the 10 Lost Tribes, right? See, they have a chapter in here, right? Whatever Happened to the 10 Lost Tribes, right? If you want to put that, flash it on the screen right there. So we go on to this chapter in the Jewish Almanac. Whatever Happened to the 10 Lost Tribes. So we're going to show you. Let me just turn this light on because I'm going to need it to read, to read them pages because the lettering is so small. So I'm going to flip the page and go to this page in here, page 122, right? And it's going to say here, it says American Indians right there. I don't know if it made it on the screen.
It's all right. You just read it to me.
Yeah. Okay. So what it says here is okay. Okay, so let me go right here. It says one of the most noteworthy discoverers of Hebrews in the New World was a Portuguese named Antonio de Montezinos, also known as Aaron Levi, who arrived in Amsterdam in 1644 with a tale calculated to amaze 2 years previously. He said he had been led deep into the mountainous wilderness of Ecuador to a meeting with 4 Indians who had greeted him with Shema Yisrael conversation, right? It says conversation with them in Hebrew revealed that they were members of the tribe of Reuben, and that remnants of the tribe of Levi also lived nearby. The leader of the Amsterdam Jewish community, a prominent rabbi named Manasseh ben Israel, 1604 to 1657, was profoundly impressed by this revelation. Now, he mentioned a man named Aaron Levi, and he also mentions a guy named Manasseh ben Israel. Now, Manasseh ben Israel wrote a book called The Hope of Israel by Manasseh ben Israel. I think it was probably written in Latin or something like that. I've never seen the book or read the book, but he speaks about how the 10 lost tribes are over here in the Americas. Now, this guy Aaron Levi, is the guy that's in this book right here called that we just read that in the Jewish Almanac, right? He's the guy that's mentioned in this book right here called Lost Tribes and Promised Lands by Ronald Sanders. Now, let me just go there to the chapter. We'll go there to it. Okay, here we go. If you got to say anything else to Zion, you'll go right ahead.
Yeah, come. Let me read this again. This is back in Mark. Slack here.
You read about there's nothing hid that.
Kind. Mark 4:22. For there is nothing hid which shall not be manifested, neither was anything kept secret. Like all the secrets and the lies of Esau. And everything's coming out, man. We're in a time now. Basically, we're in a time now of this man's end. So everything is coming out on him. That's also in what's that? Isaiah 47, where it says, lift up thy skirts, talking about Babylon, which America is Babylon the Great. We're living in a time now of them lifting their skirts up. So matter of fact, let me get that. Until this brother finds that page over there.
Yeah, I had it.
Yeah, it's all right. Because the word is still getting up. This is Isaiah 47. I'll start at 1. It says, come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. And that dust represents what? Confusion. America's in a state of confusion right now, man. And you see all the hells are multiplying. This devil, all right, starting with their elites. They're tightening the crank right now. I just heard a brother mention that the diesel prices are hitting $7 damn near, and they raising the interest rate, all kind of shit. So things are going steadily downhill. But at the same time, all the lies that this man has been pushing out over all the nations on the earth, lying, all right, deceiving, is now everything is being manifest through the spirit of YAHAWAH, BaHaSHAM, YAHAWASHI. Everything, the truth is coming out. So it says, come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. And that's talking about America. America is the virgin, the so-called white man is the virgin daughter of Babylon. America is Babylon the Great. And you can prove that by Psalms 137:7. Sit on the ground. There is no throne. They're about to lose their rulership. O daughter of the Chaldeans, for thou shalt no more be called tender and delicate. Take the millstone and grind meal. Uncover thy locks, make bare the leg, uncover the thigh, pass over the rivers. Right, so they're uncovering the thigh, all right, make bare the leg. All the shit they had hidden, all their wickedness that they had hidden, now is being revealed. Verse 3, and here's the proof. Thy nakedness, which the nakedness is talking about what? Their sins, their wicked, evil deeds. Yep. Right? It says, thy nakedness shall be uncovered. Right. Like through the spirit of brothers uncovering a part of their nakedness right now. Right. With what? Their lies. Right. It says, their nakedness shall be uncovered. Yea, thy shame shall be seen. I will take vengeance, and I will not meet thee as a man. And that's our Lord and Savior, YAHAWASHI. When he comes back, he comes back as a supreme destroying power. To what? To destroy the so-called white man, his empire, and all the other nations 2/3 of Israel, 2/3 of our own people that don't that just can't get it.
Yep, they can't get right.
That's right.
So they're gonna have to die. They're gonna have to die and just be reincarnated back in the kingdom, and then they're gonna get it right, because they're gonna be born. They're gonna be born into riches. They're gonna be born into the kingdom. They're from a baby. They're gonna be taught the right way. So you know, 2/3 of Israel, they can't get right, so they're gonna have to die and just be reincarnated. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty much the deal. Now, I'm just reading back here in the Jewish Almanac, right, where it says about one of the most noteworthy discoverers of Hebrews in the New World was a Portuguese named Antonio de Montesinos, also known as Aaron Levi, who arrived in Amsterdam in 1644 with a tale calculated to amaze. 2 years previously, he said he had been led deep in the mountainous wilderness of Ecuador to a meeting with 4 Indians who had greeted him with Shemai Yisrael conversation. So now let me go into this book, Lost Tribes and Promised Lands by Ronald Sanders, page 363. It says, a lost tribe discovered in New York. It says in September of 1644. Now, didn't we read in the Jewish Almanac? It says 1644. It says a Portuguese Marano named Antonio de Montesinos, we read that in the Jewish Almanac, right? Arrived in Amsterdam after having lived for some years in South America, and proceeded to tell the leaders of the recently established Jewish community there a story that caused them to think of him as a latter-day Eldad the Danite. It says 2.5 years before, he told them while traveling in the wild mountains of Quito, he had heard some of his Indian guides remark that the natives of that country deserved all the suffering they had undergone at the hands of the Spaniards. When he asked them to explain why they thought such a thing, they had replied mysteriously that it was because we so badly treated a holy people, the greatest in the world. Nothing more had been offered by them on this point. But later in the same conversation, Francisco, one of the Indian guides, had declared that his countrymen would be avenged upon the Spaniards in time anyway. So he's like, look, our countrymen, we're going to be avenged upon what the Spaniards did to us in time anyway. In other words, in the future, we're going to get you and put your asses in slavery. You so-called white people. In the future, we're going to get you. But as for right now, we're suffering. We're under the curses right now. So they understood that they were under the curses. It says, by means of a people now hidden, the two references apparently were to the same people, but Montesinos, not seeing their full meaning in that moment, had put the whole matter out of his mind for the time being. Upon his return to Cartagena, the Judaizing Montesinos had found himself accused by the Inquisition and put in prison. Praying for salvation in his cell one day, he was reciting what was then a standard formula among New World Maranos. Blessed be the name of the Lord, who has not made me an idolater, a barbarian, a Negro, an Indian. So this was basically a so-called Jew saying he's blessed because he's not a Negro or an Indian. But let me jump on down. Now, when he was traveling through the Quito, he was that's I believe it's Peru. The Quito Mountains. He was in the Quito Mountains, I believe, in Peru. And when he was in the mountains, now let me read this part right here. It says, when suddenly he stopped, it says, those Indians, he told himself, they are Hebrews. So he was talking about the four Indians that he had encountered. He said, those 4 Indians, those are Hebrews. And he said, pondering this thought incredulously and yet with growing conviction, he resolved that if he ever was released, he would seek out the Indian Francisco and try to learn the truth. Montesinos' story, unclear as to the circumstances of his incarceration, is equally unclear as to those of his release. Now, let me jump down. It says the two men were soon back in the rugged mountains in which Francisco had made his initial revelation, marching relentlessly for a week before they finally came to a halt. It was a Saturday. Montesinos makes a point of telling us that they had come to a river larger than the Duero, are the echoes of the Sambation in all of this. Here Francisco announced is where your brothers will be seen. Waving a banner high in the air, the Indian guide soon was greeted by a puff of smoke far beyond the other bank of the river. In response to the signal, the two men waited. Eventually, a canoe appeared bearing 3 men and a woman, all of them Indians, to the place where Francisco and Montesinos were standing at the water's edge. The woman got off and spoke to Francisco in an Indian tongue that Montesinos could not understand. Although he could perceive that he was being identified in the conversation, she then turned to her male companions to explain the situation. Upon hearing her words, they rose, went over to Montesinos, and to his utter astonishment said, Shema Yasha'Allah Yahawah Alahaya Nawa Yahawah Achad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. They had recited in Hebrew, the fundamental credo of Judaism. And that's, I believe, is that Deuteronomy 7 and 6?
Look at it.
I believe that's what they recited. That's what it says in Deuteronomy, the 7th chapter. Shema Yasha'Allah Yahawah Alahaya Nawa Yahawah Akkad. See, I'm saying it the way that it's supposed to be pronounced. But the way that they say it here, they say Shema Yishra Adonai Elohim Adonai Ehud, which is, that's the, the Yiddish way of saying Shema Yasha'Allah Yahawah Alahaya Nawa Yahawah Akkad. Right? You got that, Deuteronomy?
It's not that one. I'm looking for it. Just keep reading.
Yeah. It says, it should be there in the 7th chapter somewhere. It says, a brief conversation then ensued in their common ancestral tongue, according to Montesinos, whose fluency in it is almost as perplexing to the reader as his narrative, as is that of the 3 mysterious new companions. They told him that they were themselves of the tribes of Reuben and of the tribe of Joseph, and that the tribe of Joseph lived on an island nearby.
I got it.
Now, mind you, they were in the Quito Mountains, I believe the Quito Mountains in Peru. Now, where's Peru at? That's South America, and an island that would be nearby, that island would not be Puerto Rico, because Puerto Rico would be on the eastern side of South America. This is the western side of South America, which is adjacent to what? The Pacific Ocean. So they're in the Pacific, where that's where the Quito Mountains is located, is right by the Pacific Ocean. They're in the Pacific. Ephraim was there on one of them islands out there in the Pacific. So I'm going to just read this again. They told him they were themselves of the tribe of Reuben, and that the tribe of Joseph lived on an island nearby. Go ahead, brother.
Go ahead. This is Deuteronomy 6 and 4.
It's 6 and 4. I said 7 and 6 is 6 and 4. Go ahead.
Hear, O Israel, the Lord Yahawah BaHaSHam YAHAWASHI, the Lord our power is one.
Right. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our power is one.
Lord.
Is one Lord. Right. So they recited that. They recited that to each other, and he was there and he witnessed that, and his eyes almost jumped out of his skull.
Hey, yeah, because you got a bunch of bozos out there calling themselves Israelites. Certain sects talking about that. The Native Americans here in North Central South America and the islands are not Israelites. That's total bullshit. All right? That's total bullshit. I show you they're not learned. They're not learned, and the Lord is not dealing with them. All right?
So that's right there. That's just a little piece of information right there that is in the Jewish almanac. See, they make mention of this encounter right there in the Jewish almanac, showing you that this is all old information. All this information is all old information that they've it's printed in the almanac, but you don't really hear about it though.
You're not going to hear about it because they lie. This is 2nd Esdras 13 and 39. And whereas thou sawest that he gathered another peaceable multitude unto him, and that him is who? YAHAWASHI. YAHAWASHI, our Lord. All right? YAHAWASHI is the one who ignorantly called Jesus Christ.
That's right.
Who was a black man. All right? So now he's gathering another peaceable multitude now. These are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoner out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king.
Right. The 10 tribes that were carried away prisoner in the time of Hosea the king. So the 10 tribes, that's going back to dealing when the tribes was taken into the Assyrian captivity. Right? The 10 tribes were taken into the Assyrian captivity. And that was around the time 723 BC. And it's mentioned in the book of 2 Kings, the 17th chapter. You can go and read 2 Kings, the 17th chapter. It'll give you the history of how the tribes were taken. And then men from Babylon, men from Kutha, men from Ava, Sepharvim, men from Hamath were brought into the land. And instead of the 10 tribes that were there, then the lions were slaying them. Then they got a Levite priest to teach them the laws of the land. And then that caused the Most High to have the lions stop slaying them. So on and so forth. Go ahead, brother.
Whom Shalmaneser, the king of the Assyrians, led away captive.
Right. King Shalmaneser of the Assyrians, they led the 10 tribes away captive into Assyria. Go ahead.
And he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt.
Right. The further country where never mankind dwelt is over here in the Americas. This is the further country where mankind never dwelt. So they came here to the Americas. Go ahead.
That they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land.
Right. But in this land, that they'll be able to keep the statutes that they never kept in their own land, which is talking about the law. Because while they was in the land, they weren't keeping the law. That's why the Most High caused the Assyrians to come and grab them up and put them in captivity. And then right after they got put into captivity, shortly after that, Nebuchadnezzar II, they grabbed Judah up and put the kingdom of Judah in captivity.
That's right. And another thing, too, when they came to this land that never mankind dwelt, they still didn't keep the law. They went further and further away from their Heavenly Father.
That's right.
That's why when the so-called white man came to the Americas, he found them in the condition they were in. They were, I mean, they were worshiping all kind of different beasts, animals. They were into human sacrifices. You know, they got a lot of hieroglyphics that you see down there in South America, showing you what they were doing. Walking around with people's head, they had the head shrinkers. They were bugged out, man, and they were wicked. That's why the Lord allowed Esau to spank all 12 tribes, you know, but including them. It says, and they entered into the Euphrates so the Lord showing you how they got to the Americas. And they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river. For the Most High then showed signs for them. Right. By what? Chariots. All right. There were chariots that led them over here. And held still the floods till they were passed over. So there was no crazy storms on the waters. It was a calm ride.
Right.
And they traveled the long way. All right. From the Euphrates going down around the Horn of Africa.
Right. They went into the Euphrates.
Down.
And they went into the Indian Ocean. Right. Which brought them around.
Which is the eastern side of Africa.
Eastern side of Africa.
Shores, and they came around.
Right. And they came up under and when you look at the currents, when you look at a map of the currents, it shows you the currents that when you come into the Indian Ocean, there's a current that'll take you to the up to the Horn of Africa, then there's another current that'll bring you right up into the Atlantic. That's the route that they went. Into the Euphrates, into the Indian Ocean, around Eastern Africa. They came up under the Horn of Africa and went right up the Atlantic. That's the route that they went. And in King Solomon's time, when Solomon had made a when we were cool with the Canaanites, there's a Hiram Abiff. Solomon had a great navy, and they were coming back and forth here to America, and it was every 3 years Solomon would rejoice at a bounty that was returning back to Jerusalem. Now I said every 3 years Solomon rejoiced. Why was it every 3 years? The scripture's telling you the journey took them a year and a half to get where they were going. So that means coming back will be what? A year and a half to come back, which would be what? 3 years. Solomon rejoiced every 3 years. So Solomon had his navy coming over here to the Americas to gather materials to do what? To bring back to Jerusalem, to beautify Jerusalem. Where do you think they got all the wood and ivory and gold and different things that they use to build the temple and to build Solomon's home? From the Americas. This is the land where mankind never dwelt. They came here and got materials and went and brought them back. Go ahead, brother.
For the Most High then showed signs for them and held still the flood till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half.
Right. Namely, the great way they had to go was namely a year and a half. It took them a year and a half to leave through the Euphrates, come into the Indian Ocean, up under Africa. When they got there by the Horn of Africa, then the current took them up the Atlantic. So they were riding those currents. It took a year and a half. Go ahead.
And the name and the same region is called Arthureth. Then dwelt they there until the latter time.
And then dwelt they there until the latter time.
Which is now. They're still here. And now when they shall begin to come. How was it on that? You got something else to read it?
And now when they shall begin to come. Now Arsareth is another name for America. They understood that Arsareth is the place that is now known as America, that the tribes had came to, that the 10 tribes had came to. Give me 1 second.
So I'm going to read the scripture here again while this brother's getting that.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'm going to read it on through. This is Slocky. Let me get this big thing here because of my eyes. Okay. This is back in Mark 4:22 on through. It says, "For there is nothing hid which shall not be manifested, neither was anything kept secret, but that it should come abroad." So all these, we're going through it. All these lies of this devil, everything is coming out abroad. All right, the whole world sees it now.
Yep. So I'm gonna continue reading a little bit here in Lost Tribes and Promised Lands. Then I'm gonna go into something else. Now it says that was his encounter with those Indians that basically said Shema Yasha'Allah Yahawah Al-Hayanawa Yahawah Akkad, right? And they said they were of the tribe of Reuben, and the tribe of Joseph lived on the island nearby. Now it says Francisco told Montesinos all he knew about these people from his own traditions. He says his ancestors, to their eternal shame, had indeed made war on them and persecuted them. So this guy, Francisco, who was with Montesinos, was talking about the bad things that they did to these Indian people that were there in the Quito Mountains and the ones that were off there in the islands, right? So he says his ancestors to their eternal shame, had indeed made war on them and persecuted them. Only the sorcerers of his tribe had perceived that they were a special people. Don't the scriptures say we're a special people unto the Lord?
Yeah.
It says, and had given warning that they should be left alone. So their witches told them, look, leave those people alone. Stop persecuting those people. The witches among them devils told them, look, leave these people alone. Now he goes on to say, the God of these children of Israel is the true God. They had said, and everything inscribed on their tablets is true. At the end of days, they will be lords of all nations of the earth. Right? At the end of days, they shall be lords of all nations of the earth.
That's right.
Now, doesn't it say, what is that in Revelations 2:26? To him that overcometh, will I give power over the nations?
Right now.
So this is one thing that these two devils right here, one was saying to the other devil, look, the God of these children of Israel is the true God. They had said, and everything inscribed in their tablets is true. At the end of days, they will be lords of all nations of the earth.
And that's the times we're coming in right now.
And that's the times we're coming into right now. Revelations 13:9 and 10.
I got a scripture for you.
Right? He got a scripture. Read that scripture.
Revelation 2:26. And he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nation.
Right. And to him that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, this is talking about of Israel. To him will I give power over the nations. Now, we just read that in the book Lost Tribes and Promised Lands. This is the conversation that these two devils were having with each other. One was telling the other one that, you know, we persecuted these people. We did bad things to them. But he said that their sorcerers, meaning their witches, told them, look, leave these people alone. They're a special people. The Lord said, thou art an holy people.
That sounds like Balaam and Balak.
Right. It's like Balaam and Balak. Now, don't the scripture say, thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God? The Lord hath chosen thee to be a special people unto him, above all people that are upon the face of the earth. And what he told them is, he said, these people in the end of days are going to be lords over all nations in the end of days. That's the time that we're coming to right now. And this is why the so-called white man is scrambling like he is, like the devil he is, because he knows his time is short. Because we are at the end of days. That's why what's happening, it's what's going on right now. The gas prices, diesel fuel is damn near almost $7 a gallon.
And you people might say, well, I don't use no diesel for my car. You need that diesel to bring your goods to your house. You need diesels to eat. You need diesel to wear your clothes. The diesel is what powers the country.
The diesel is what brings the regular gas to the gas station for you to put in your car. What do you mean? I'm glad I don't need diesel. Motherfucker, look, the diesel is what is in those tanker trucks, is diesel is in them, that they come and drop off the regular gas, the mid-grade gas, and the premium gas is all dropped off because of diesel. They drive it and bring it in and they fill the tanks up. The diesel is what brings the stuff to Walmart and brings the stuff to Stop and Shop or any supermarket. Hell, the corner store. Diesel is what brings all the products to your corner store. You go there and go, give me a Philly blunt. You like going to get your little damn Philly blunt. You ain't supposed to be smoking a damn Philly blunt, but you niggas like going and getting you a Black and Miles and your Philly blunts and your Newports from the corner store. How the hell you think you get to the corner store? Because of diesel fuel.
I got a picture for you.
Go ahead.
2nd Ezra 8:50. It says, "For many great miseries shall be done to them that in the latter time shall dwell in the world."
Many great miseries shall be done to them that in the latter time shall dwell in the world. And we're in that time right now.
Because they have walked in great pride.
Because people have walked what? In great pride. People have walked straight up in great pride. What's some of the other ones you got there?
Okay, cut.
Yeah.
I got the Bastard in Ashdod. I got that one.
Yeah, you can read that one.
Okay. I got here Zechariah, the book of Zechariah. Slack your brothers.
So that's just showing you that now that's just a little inkling right there, but there's more. So I'm gonna go back in here.
I got it.
Go ahead, so read that.
Zechariah 9:6. And a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod, and I will cut off the pride of the Philistines. All right.
A bastard shall dwell in Ashdod. Ashdod is a seaport city in Israel. Now, the bastard that's dwelling in Ashdod right now is who? These big nose people, the small hats. They wear that sun disc on top of their head called a yarmulke. They're living over there in Israel right now. That's the bastard that's dwelling in Ashdod, because they don't belong there. That's not their land. Where they belong is south of the land of Judah in Mount Seir. That's their homeland. The scripture says, a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod. Now I'm gonna go back into here into the Jewish encyclopedia, and I'm gonna read another instance over here. It says the notion that the Indians were lost tribesmen became even more popular in North America. And by the 18th century, many Americans accepted the possibility, excuse me, it says many Americans accepted the possibility, if not the proven fact, that the people whom they were overwhelming and displacing were degenerated descendants of the very nation with which they were so intimately identified through religious faith. One of the most widely circulated volumes of the subject was A History of the American Indians by a trader named James Adair. This appeared in London in 1775 with abundant documentation in the form of cognates and grammatical parallels relating Indian languages to Hebrew, observations on physical characteristics said to be shared by both peoples at an assortment, right? So now they're speaking about James Adair. And where's James Adair? Which is this right here. A History of the American Indian by James Adair. Like, it first appeared in 1775. Now, what does it say here in James Adair's? Let me open this up with James Adair's History of the American Indian. And he says in here, it says, James Adair's History of the North American Indians, a note in this edition. In the spring of 1775, we read in the Jewish Almanac, they said 1775, right? It says, in 1775, James Adair's History of the American Indians was released by publishers Edward and Charles Dilly of London. The book was actually a study of major tribes residing adjacent to Britain's southern colonies, particularly the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Creek, Choctaw Indians, in addition to providing a survey of Southern Indian history from the 1740s through the 1760s. A review of the book in May of 1775 issue of London Magazine promised an account of their origin, manners, religious and civil customs, and other particulars sufficient to render it a complete Indian system. Central to the goal was a carefully formulated thesis consisting of 23 arguments proposing to prove that the Indians of America were of Hebrew descent. So now, let me flip through here. Now, James Adair, and I'm going to read what it says, James Adair's History and Life. It says, James Adair hardly seems to exit outside the confines of his monumental history of the southern backcountry. Shadowy rumors of his existence elsewhere were abound. Born the youngest son of Irish gentry, later the head of a family by a Cherokee woman in North Carolina on the eve of the American Revolution, yet not a shred of hard evidence is offered to support these claims. James Adair deserves better, for his larger-than-life existence among the southeastern Indians is far more interesting than genealogical conjecture. Adair was, in fact, a self-proclaimed English Chickasaw the most of what we know about him begins and ends with the southeastern Indians, among whom he made his home for the media part of 40 years. So he lived among the Native American Indians for 40 years. So he wrote down the things that he observed was going on among the Native Americans when he lived there, when he lived among them for 40 years. You got anything to say, Elder Zion?
No, go ahead. Go ahead. I got some more scripture here.
Now it says here, now I'm going to go to page 67. Now on page 67, it's actually over here. Yeah. So I'm going to go to page 68. Now he says here, as the American Indians are of a reddish or copper color, so in general, they are strong, well-proportioned in body.
You said what, reddish?
Right. In other words, because they had the red war paint on.
Right.
They wore red war paint. Right. It says well-proportioned in body and limbs, surprisingly active and nimble, and handy and hardy in their own way of living. If you could get me the scripture, 1 Chronicles 12, verses 8 to 14. And he's describing what he's seen while he was living among the Native American Indians. Now, I was going to go on to say, it says here, he's talking about these Gadites when it came to war. He says, the men are expert in the use of firearms, in shooting the bow and throwing the feathered dart, right? Shooting the bow and throwing the feathered dart and tomahawk into a flying enemy. They resemble the lynx with their sharp, penetrating black eyes and are exceedingly swift of foot, especially in a long chase. They will stretch away through the rough woods by the bare track for 200 or 300 miles in pursuit of a flying enemy. He said, with the continued speed and eagerness of a stanch pack of bloodhounds till they shed blood. He's talking about the physical ability of the Native American Indian, the men, the braves when it came to wartime, right? And he says, when they have allayed their burning thirst, they return home at their leisure, unless they chance to be pursued, as in sometimes the case, whence the traders say that an Indian is never in a hurry, but when the devil is at his heels. Get 1 Chronicles 12 and 8.
1 Chronicles 12 and 8. And of the Gadites, there separated themselves unto David into the wilderness, men of might and men of war fit for the battle.
Men of might and men of war fit for the battle. Now, what do we read that James Adair described about these Gadites? Because this is the tribe of Gad. He spoke about their physicality, how they were fit for what? For the battle. How they were what? Experts in war. Right? So I'm gonna read this again. He says here, he says, so in general, they are strong, well-proportioned in body and limbs, surprisingly active and nimble, and hardy in their own way of living. Go ahead, read that again, brother.
And of the Gadites, there separated themselves unto David into the hold of the wilderness, men of might and men of war fit for the battle, that could handle shield and buckler, whose faces were like the faces of lions.
Right, because they paint their faces, they wore the war paint. Their faces were like the faces of lions. Go ahead.
And were as swift as the roes upon the mountain.
Wait a minute. It said they were swift as the roes. A roe is a deer. If you ever seen a deer in motion, if you ever seen a deer is swift as hell. Swift and agile. Swift, agile as hell. He said that they were as swift as the roes upon the mountain. Now, James Adair said that, he says here that he says the men are expert in the use of firearms, in shooting the bow and throwing the feathered dart and tomahawk, into a flying enemy. They resemble the lynx with their sharp, penetrating black eyes and are exceedingly swift of foot. Especially in a long chase, they will stretch away through the rough woods by the bear track for 200 or 300 miles in pursuit of a flying enemy. Go ahead, brother. In Chronicles?
Cut. It says, and were as swift as the roes upon the mountain, Ezer the first, Obadiah the second, Eliab the third, Mishmana the fourth, Jeremiah the fifth, Attai the sixth, Eliel the seventh, Johanan the eighth, Elzabad the ninth. These are talking about the different warriors.
Yep, these are talking about the different warriors that were with David, of Gad, that were under David. Go ahead.
Jeremiah the 10th, Makbanai the 11th. These were of the sons of Gad, captains of the host. One of the least was over 100, and the greatest over 1,000.
Right. So that's telling you about Gad when it came to war, when they were under King David. So just showing you bits and pieces of evidence that James Adair had wrote. This is what he's seeing with his eyes. He was among them for 40 years. So he wrote down, he chronicled what he's seen. He lived among them for 40 years. Now on the next page, he says this about the warriors. He says this. He says they compare both these to paint on a warrior's face because it incites others to a spirit of martial benevolence for their country and pleases in their own fancy and the eyes of spectators for a little time, but is sweated off while he is performing his war dances or is defaced by the change of weather. Talking about the war paint on the Gadite's face. Now it goes on to say this here. I'm just going to read another excerpt out of here, and then we're going to go into something else. Now, one of the main things that these devils, the narrative that these devils always try to bring home is the fact that the Native Americans are descendants of the Chinese, which is bullshit. That's just total bullshit. Now, over here on page 73, he says this. He says, some have supposed that the Americans, talking about the American Indians, to be descended from the Chinese, but neither their religion, laws, customs agree in the least with those of the Chinese, which sufficiently proves that they are not of that line. It says, besides, as our best ships now are almost half a year in sailing to China or from thence to Europe, it is very unlikely they should attempt such dangerous discoveries in early time with their supposed small vessels against rapid currents.
You gotta remember too, to go across that Pacific Ocean is a longer, way longer trek.
Yeah,
than going across the Atlantic.
That's right.
You know,
the Pacific is much broader, and much wider.
About them walking through the Bering, that's all bullshit, man. Esau's a fucking liar.
He's a devil.
They walked across. They walked across the Bering Straits during the Ice Age. That's make-believe bullshit.
Yeah, that's make-believe bullshit. But what actually happened, he says here, he says, and in dark and sickly monsoons, because that's what you're going to encounter in the Pacific. Leaving from that side of the world to come to this side of the world.
It's a long trek.
It's a long trek.
The type of ships they had back then.
No, there's no way that that's going to happen.
Well, you just said it right there what you just read.
He says, and in dark and sickly monsoons, especially as it is very probable they were unacquainted with the use of the lodestone to direct their course. China is above 8,000 miles distant from the American continent, which is twice as far as across the Atlantic Ocean. That's what we just said. As you just said. It says, and we are not informed by any ancient writer of their maritime skill or so much as any inclination that way besides small coasting voyages.
And by the way, we just read to you in 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter, 39th verse on down, how the 10 tribes got to the Americas.
Right.
And it breaks down the route they took.
That's right. And it says, the winds blow likewise with little variation from east to west within the latitudes of 30 and odd north and south, and therefore they could not drive them on the American coast, it lying directly contrary to such a course. Right, so that's what he was saying there.
Right. He's theorizing the whole deal. It's like, wait, if that was, it couldn't have been possible.
Yep.
Especially with the technology they had and
back then,
and all of that. But now we read in Second Ezra, the Lord tell you how he held the floods for them to do that long voyage from the Euphrates down the Indian Ocean around the Horn of Africa into the Americas, and that's well documented. We just read to you in the book in the Apocrypha.
Right. Now I'm gonna jump down. It's page 74. It says, now I'm gonna jump down to the bottom paragraph. It says, from the most exact observations I could make in the long time I traded among the Indian Americans, I was forced to believe them lineally descended from the Israelites, either while they were a maritime power or soon after the general captivity. The latter, however, is the most probable. Now, when was Israel a maritime power? Give me 1 Kings 10 and 22. Going to be 1 Kings 10 and 22.
1 Kings 10 and 22. It says, For the king had at sea a navy, and the king is who? King Solomon. All right, let's go back to King Solomon. For the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish with the navy of Hiram.
Right, because he was a collaboration with who? Hiram Abiff, which Hiram Abiff was I believe he was a Canaanite, and Hiram Abiff was a master builder. Read that again.
It says, for the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish with the navy of Hiram. Once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory and apes and peacocks.
1 in 3 years, right? Came the ships of Tarshish, bringing what? Ivory, gold, apes, and peacocks. They was also bringing wood too.
Right, and you find apes in South America.
Right,
throughout the islands.
Yep.
You know, really South America, Central America, South America. You got different exotic animals.
Now there in the scriptures, when it says peacocks, that's actually a misprint, because the word that should be there should be turkeys. See, peacocks are peacocks at that time. I believe it was really supposed to say turkeys. I believe that they brought turkeys back over here to the land of Israel. Well, read that again.
For the king had at sea a navy of Tarshish with the navy of Hiram. Once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory and apes and peacocks. Right?
Go ahead.
So King Solomon exceeded all the kings of the earth for riches and for wisdom.
Right. And it said what? In 3 years, right? That they would come back.
Every 3 years.
Every 3 years. So now, earlier we read in Ezra's about it took them a 1.5 year journey to get over here. So it's telling you that every 3 years there was a bounty that was brought back. That was brought back to Jerusalem. Read that again.
Good.
The Solomon's great navy, in 3 year intervals, they would come back. And what were they bringing? Goods from where? From the Americas. And it took the tribes a 1.5 years to leave from the Assyrians in the Euphrates River into the Indian Ocean, around under Africa, into the Atlantic, and then they hit what? They hit Central South America and the mainland America. It took them a 1.5 years to make that journey. Solomon's navy every 3 years returned with a bounty, which means it took them a 1.5 years to get here. They gathered the materials, and then a 1.5 years to come back, which is what, 3 years. Go ahead.
Listen, once in 3 years came the navy of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory and apes and peacocks. So King Solomon exceeded all the kings of the earth for riches and for wisdom. All
right, so that's just a little bit of information on in James Adair, History of the American Indian by James Adair. And again, this is a reference that's mentioned in the Jewish Almanac. Now, another thing that I want to show is a book here called Christopher Columbus and the Participation of the Jews in the Spanish and Portuguese Discoveries. This is an old book also, right? So I'm gonna go right here, go right to it. I'm gonna go right to page 96. Now, could you get me the could you get Jeremiah 17? I think it's 17. Yeah. Thou shalt discontinue from the heritage.
Jeremiah 17:4. And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not.
Right. So we as a people, right, we discontinue from the heritage that the Lord gave us. We discontinue from our heritage as what? Being Israelites. We lost our identity. And then what happened? The so-called white man, the so-called Jew, took on our identity and said that he was us. And then they threw us in with the Hamites and said that we're Hamites. And they took the Indian tribes and said that, hey, they descend from the Chinese. They come from the Chinese. Right? They come from the Chinese. But give me the now give me another one. I think is it Deuteronomy 32:7. So basically what we're doing is we're unearthing and showing you, we're bringing out the truth. We're showing you different things in history that line up and showing you that the so-called Jew, that they have always known this. Because all of this information is mentioned here in the Jewish Almanac. This is all information that's mentioned in the Jewish Almanac.
Deuteronomy 32:7. Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will show thee, thy elders, and they will tell thee.
Right. Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. That's what we're doing. We're considering the days of many generations. We're going back. We're going back into the history. Go ahead.
When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel.
So that's it. So now I'm going to read an excerpt from here from Lost Tribes and Promised Lands, not Lost Tribes and Promised Lands, from Christopher Columbus and the Participation of the Jews in the Spanish and Portuguese Discoveries. So I'm going to go here to page, I think it's page 96. And on this page, it says Indians and Israelites. Now it's going to make mention. Let me just make sure.
Hey, hold on. I got one back up that real quick.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
This is Job 8:8. For inquire, I pray thee, of the former age, and prepare thyself to search of their fathers.
Right. And prepare thyself for the search of thy fathers. So now I'm going to just go right to the point. It's actually page 98. The heading says Indians and Israelites. It says, of more interest than the mode of migration is the question whether any analogies in language and traditions, in religious conceptions, or in religious ceremonies justify the acceptance of this ethnological theory. Roldan's chief argument in support of his view is the language of the Indians in Hispaniola, which is the Dominican Republic. It was called Hispaniola. Cuba, Jamaica, and the adjoining islands, he contends that it has many resemblances to Hebrew. In fact, he even calls it corrupted Hebrew. He asserts that such names as Cuba and Haiti are Hebrew, and that they were first applied by the earliest caciques, the chiefs or leaders who discovered and peopled the islands. The names of rivers and of persons in use among the natives are derived from the Hebrew. For example, hyena from the Hebrew ayin, stream, yons from Jonah. Excuse me. It says Yaki from Jacob, Urias from Urias, Sibiao from Seba, my Isi from Moisi. The names of their tools of their little canoes or kansas, the name Axi for pepper, the name of the storehouse for maize grain, and the like all point to the Hebrew language. Their rites and ceremonies, as well as their language, from one of the main arguments in favor of this theory of descent. Circumcision prevailed among the Indians. Why were the Indians here in the Americas circumcising themselves? Where'd they get that from? That goes back to Abraham. On the 8th day, you circumcise your child, you circumcise the boys on the 8th day. Circumcision prevailed among the Indians. Where did they know about circumcision from? It says circumcision prevailed among the Indians. They often bathed in rivers and streams. They refrained from touching the dead and from tasting blood. They had definite fast days. Marriage with sister-in-laws was permitted if they were childless widows. In the law, if your brother doesn't have a son, right, and he dies, by right, you're supposed to take that woman and raise up seed unto your brother's name. That's what that's talking about right there. That prevailed among the Indians over here in the Americas. It says, marriage with sister-in-laws was permitted if they were childless widows. Wives were discarded for new helpmates. They also sacrificed first fruits on high mountains. Isn't the Feast of First Fruits? It mentions that in the Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. That's one of our holidays, the first fruits. It says here, they also sacrificed first fruits on high mountains and under shady trees. They had temples and carried a holy ark before them in time of war. Wait a minute. When you read in the book of Joshua, right? Didn't we have the Ark of the Covenant with us? Didn't we carry the ark with us in time of war?
Right. And so what you're reading there, it's showing you that there's so many similarities with the so-called natives, all right, here in the Western Hemisphere with the Israelites. Now, not one time did he read any similarities they had with the Orientals, so to speak.
And check this.
Asians.
And check this. We are Oriental.
Or we're from the East. But
when we're from the East, no, I know what you're saying.
When I say Oriental, the way these peons know
right,
the word.
Right.
These people are peons. They're not on no level, man.
Yeah, you people out there.
The actual word Orient means the East.
Right.
Matter of fact, there's a place in Long Island called Orient Point, which is the farthest point east of Long Island.
Right.
They call it Orient Point.
Yep.
Or Orient. Anyway, they call the so-called, now they call them Asians or whatever, or Mongoloids. What this brother's reading, you ain't seeing no similarity with the natives of the North, Central, South America and the islands with those peoples over there. Not one. Because they're not those people. Those people are a total different nation. All right?
Right. So that's showing you in here that this is all well-known information. This information is all well-known information right here. So again, it said that it said they also sacrificed first fruits on high mountains and under shady trees. They had temples and carried a holy ark before them in the time of war. They were also
they're mimicking. They were mimicking the Ark of the Covenant.
Exactly.
Because that was in their spirit.
That's right. It says they were also like the 10 tribes inclined to idol worship.
Well,
because they are the 10 tribes.
That's right.
That's why.
And they came over here, like we read in Ezra's, they wanted to come here to practice the statutes. And it didn't last too long because they went deep into wickedness, man.
Yep.
That was a part of the curses.
Yep, that's a part of the curses. So we discontinue from the heritage that the Lord gave us. But guess what? The information is out there. It's undeniable who the Israelites are. And you got these jackasses out there who are BOAs, black only Israelites, right? With this black only Israelite bullshit. That first of all, the tribes are all different shades of brown. Now, another thing I want to show you because you got these Negro only Israelite niggas, BOAs, you know, these black only Israelite niggas. You got these monkey ass niggas running around, you know, trying to say that Gad and them, no, they from the Chinese. Those are not real Israelites. Everybody is not going to be super dark skinned and have nappy woolly hair. See, the Lord said that we are like a speckled bird. What is that? Is that Jeremiah 12:9? Is that the Lord said, my heritage unto me is as a speckled bird. But now, one thing I want to show you in this book here called and I actually that's the spirit, because it opened right up to the page. This book right here is called The Great Chiefs, right? And it's a nice leather cover and binding, and you see a Native American on the cover with the headdress on, you know, sitting on the horse and all that. I'm gonna show you something in here. It says this thing is called a warrior's portrayal of the puberty dance. In other words, what we would call when you become bar mitzvahed, right? Now, this picture here is going to show, it says, let me use this light. It says, adorned with healthy symbols, the yard-high painting was done in vegetable dyes on a doe skin. So this is basically, if you want to say, this is like a garment. And it says here, like other Indians of the West, the Apaches were a deeply religious people who constantly propitiated the spirits believed to dwell everywhere in the natural world. Most of their ceremonies were private affairs. For instance, a warrior would sing a prayer over his weapons to strengthen them against the enemy, right? Now, this particular piece of garment right here, you know what's on here? You see on here a Star of David. You see a bunch of menorahs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 6 menorahs here, right? You see a bunch, you see Stars of David and menorahs on this thing right here, right? So I'm gonna let you see Elder Zahn. You see that?
Yeah.
What do you see there?
Where?
Right there. Right there. You see those menorahs?
Oh, yeah, I see it.
See the menorahs?
Yep,
you see it, Star of David. Now wait a minute. Where'd that come from? Where'd that come from? Right here. So right over here, I'm trying to put it up here for y'all to see it. So I'm gonna have to kind of trying to angle it. No. Forgive me with this because it's kind of difficult for me to get this up here, but I'm gonna have to if you look over there and over here on this side right here where my hand is at, if I can get it up there to the screen, you'll see on this garment, you'll see a bunch of menorahs and the shield of David. And this is showing a warrior's dance, which is what's being portrayed on this garment. And this is in the book, The Great Chiefs. And what do you see on there? You see menorahs and you see a shield of David on there. Where'd they get that from? You see on it, you see the menorah, you see a bunch of shields of David, and you see menorahs on the garment. So that's showing you that what? That the Gadites, these Gadites, this was talking about the Apache. That these are Israelites. Period. You got something else to design?
No.
Here's another picture of an Apache warrior. But that's just showing you right there. These are just relics showing you about the Gadites, about the Native American Indians. So it's without question that these are the 10 lost tribes of the nation of Israel that were carried away into the Assyrian captivity that came over here to the Americas. There's a whole lot more relics and other stuff that we could go into, but it's starting to get a little late right now. So we basically we're basically just gonna close this out. And you got some more on there?
No, we finished it. We read everything.
Okay. So we're basically gonna close this out. And hope you brothers learned something. It was a lot of reading. It gets a little meticulous at times. It's a lot of reading, but the bottom line is we're in the last days, and the bottom line is we're gonna put this man in captivity for what they did to us, for what they did to the children of Israel. They're gonna pay for it. As a matter of fact, get Revelations 13:9 and 10. See, the sum of the whole matter is you put your hands on the children of Israel. The scriptures say, touch not mine anointed and do my prophets no harm. You harmed the people of the Lord, and now we're at the time when it's time for you to pay for what you did to us. So now you're going to get it now.
Revelation 13:9 and 10. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity.
The scriptures say, he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. See, and slavery began with the enslavement of the Indians here in the Americas. It didn't start with Judah, Benjamin, and Levi coming over here on cargo slave ships, because during the time of Columbus, they took a bunch of Indians from the islands and put them on ships and brought them to Spain.
And they put them in slavery on the islands.
That's right.
To go bring them gold and all that.
Right, and they enslaved them on the islands. When you look at the enslavement of what happened
they enslaved them over there in South America.
That's right. So it started actually with the tribes that was over here. Then Judah was brought over here.
Judah, Benjamin, and Levi.
Right, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi.
He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints.
Right. So he that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. And just like we read in the book Lost Tribes and Promised Lands, when the two Edomites was talking to each other, and the one said to him that, look, we did these people, we did bad things to this people. And look, he said their sorcerers told them, leave these people alone. And he said that these people in the latter time are going to be lords over all the nations. That's what we just read in Revelations 13:9 and 10. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. In the latter time, these people are going to be lords over all the nations of the earth. And that's the time we're coming into now. So pretty much that was it. Maybe another day we'll probably go into it again and go into some other information. I got more information that I didn't even touch. So maybe another day we'll go into it. But I like to give all honor, glory, and praise to Yahawah, BaHaSHam, YAHAWASHI, BaHaSHam, QADASH, and I want to say Shalom.
Shalom, Akim.